Happy Tuesday. We just had a long weekend here in Canada and Ontario, and it's kind of tough once you get back into the rhythm of things. But hope it was a great weekend for you, whether you had a long one or not. And as an entrepreneur, you can kind of guess that there are no weekends. Every day is a work weekend. Every day is a work day. So uh, it happens. But I hope whether you're a part of a large company or a small company, whether it's your company or you're working for someone, really hope that you had a really good weekend, and we hope that you find these videos useful. This is, of course, another Tuesday Live for Jade Strategic Relations. My name is JD Thomas. I'm a business and communications advisor, and my role is to help businesses and business owners understand different ways of and implementing processes, procedures, technologies that will help them better themselves, that will allow them to gain more of a foothold in their own industry and in their community, to allow them the time, the effort, the energies that they are going to put out towards the end result, which is what they want to do. Because face it, as entrepreneurs, so whether you're a solopreneur, mompreneur, however you phrase it, with you work for an MLM, you found a product or service that you really like and that you want to get it out into the world, and that's a great thing. But the business of business often tends to be the part that people struggle with. And so that's where I come in. That's where Jade Strategic Relations comes in to help enable your business to perform at its peak. And today, the discussion we're going to talk about to you is payment for yourself, a wage, a salary, if it is, or just in normalizing your pay and having it set. It sounds, to those who work for companies who have just get employed and they know what their salary is, it sounds counterintuitive. How would you not know? But when you're starting a business, or when you've been running a business for a couple of years and things are moving along, what tends to happen is you just get your income, you pay your bills, and your pay is essentially just whatever you need to survive or whatever you can draw out. And there's a couple of reasons why you want to establish what your pay rate is. And it's often it's a tough thing to think about and wrap your head around when you're a business owner, because especially in the early days, you're just getting started. You're just getting whatever income you can. You're putting it to whatever you can to the side, and you're using whatever you can to keep the company going. And to think about, okay, well, if I create a cost that I'm going to set for myself, then it's going to then affect how much I bring in. And it doesn't have to be at that point. The purpose, and we'll start off with, why do you need to set your hourly price? And for the biggest thing, it's accounting. It is for the back end or for your packages, and to know how much you should be charging. There is a set rate, whether you pay yourself or not, especially in the beginning, it doesn't really matter. You are, especially if you're not incorporated, incorporation requires you to have specific information that's available for accounting and for corporate governance. And so that is important to have with you and important to have as a part of it. But when you're looking at yourself and just giving yourself whatever money you can, why should I set a price? And the purpose is so that you know how much your time is worth. That is the biggest part of it, because you're going to go into a lot of meetings. You're going to go into events, networking events, and it could be a vendor event, whatever it might be. When you go out there, you need to know whether or not this is going to be cost effective for you. And if you're talking to people, you go to events, and you understand what your worth is per hour, then you can calculate what the return on investment will be for that. And sometimes it is a hit. You take a hit, you say, okay, I'm going to put more money into this, and I'm going to take a hit on this, and that's your choice. But at least if you look at it and you do some quick math, you'll understand whether or not it's actually a good idea for you to even go to the event or have a meeting with somebody. Because if your cost per hour is not making it effective, then you might want to rethink it. It's also important when you, as I said in the earlier episode, when you go and create a list of the jobs that you're doing, the tasks that you're doing in your company, and you're deciding on what you're going to start to put to somebody else, that's when you start to realize, okay, if I'm going to pay somebody else this much to do it, then I need to know how much I'm making for this. Again, whether how much you adhere to this, especially in the early days, is up to you. Internally, for your tax purposes and for what you're doing, no one's going to expect you to have your company go bankrupt just because you're putting yourself as a setting rate, but it allows you to work from there. It allows you that standard, and so you set your prices and you set how much you're going to charge for your services and how much you need to bring in order to live. And so then it comes to the question of, how do you figure it out? What is the cost? How much do I set my standard at? And this is a very difficult thing for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs getting started, especially if there's not a lot of rivals in your field and what you're trying to accomplish. You want to make sure that you understand what the going rate is for someone doing those tasks. And this is why you might go ahead and put in your list of what you're doing and what you're going to pay somebody else to do, because then you can see by skill set, what is it that's comparable to what's this position getting paid to it in the workforce. And so figuring out how much that should be depends on a lot of different factors. And you can look at comparable positions within the industry, and you can look through Indeed. And I think that LinkedIn has a way, when you're a business owner, that you can go through, if you're paying for a premium package, you can go through and see what the pay rates are for certain employee rates, and see what you can do a Google search. But always keep in mind a couple of things: one, your industry; two, where you represent in your industry, because newer players aren't going to necessarily garner the required payment, like the amounts that a more experienced will be. Even if you are worth something, you're leaving an industry, not leaving the industry, leaving a company to start your own business, you're not necessarily going to be worth to your business as you were to another business. And so you need to keep that in mind. And the other part of this is to make sure that you understand for your region, because if you're in a different country, I'm in Canada, and a certain pay is expected for a certain position, that will change from place to place. So you want to make sure that when you're searching for the people doing these duties, and this maybe it's a job title, that you have that set out. Difficult when you're doing an MLM, and the structure of an MLM is very different. You don't necessarily, it's not intuitive for you to think, okay, well, I'm going to do this by a set amount. You know what your products are in, you know what your products are out. Maybe someone in your upline is telling you this, which is good information. Always look at the people in the upline. How do they do things? How do they get to that place in their upline? Because that's a very important strategy to have. If you're just taking everything that's coming to you and just putting it out there as it comes, you're not necessarily speaking to your niche or your market. And that's one of the people who are higher up in uplines do well, is that they know who they are. They know how they represent. They know what their value is and how to work within a system. They even make their own system. And so you need to follow those guidances, because that's really effective for your for where you are. But making sure you understand the calculation, and you can start off by just saying, here's how much I want to make in a year. And it's a good goal setting measure. So let's say you want to make, well, let's say 80,000 a year. If you look at a typical, 40-hour work week, you're looking at 50 weeks a year. You're looking at roughly, $40 an hour. And so can you work this out? And again, it could be aspirational. You're saying, I'm going to make 80,000 this year, and this is how much I need to make an hour in order to do that. And then how many hours are you working? It's benchmarking. It's a way of setting goals, but it's also a way of having, okay, if I'm going to a meeting, or if this service that I'm providing, takes this many hours of my time, then I need to be paid for that. And the adequate compensation for that is there. And you can, again, if you take that goal and you check to see where that is within your industry, maybe it's going to be making a lot more sense. I'm in public relations, and if I look at someone with my tenure in public relations, there's a pretty good cost per hour to that. And I'm not, no, that's generally if you're looking at a larger company, more established business. I've got the experience that many of the people in those businesses have, and I will work to work just as hard as they do, and I give great results. But having a smaller business, and I do work within a smaller group. I don't go after the very large multinational businesses. I've worked for them and I know how to work for them, but my clientele is usually 3 to 5 years. Typically, I go up to 10 and 20 years, and I'm not constricted, but my sweet spot is these people who have the businesses who have started up, they've gotten over that big hump and they're able to go further. They have a little bit more income, but they don't have a lot to put towards campaigns, or they don't have a lot towards business advisory services. The return on investment comes later on. And once they've hired me, I provide those services. But again, I'm somewhat restricted by the abilities of my clients. And so all these factors come into play into how do you calculate what you want to, or what you should be earning per hour. And perhaps it's a chicken and the egg thing in terms of where do you set your price versus the prices you've already set. And there's always updates to be done. So always evaluate yourself in terms of how much you're getting paid, how much you set your services and products for, and how much it's going to take for you to be successful. One other part I want to talk about in this is the idea that you have to beat your competitors or your rivals. And it's a very dangerous slope to look at who's out there and trying to beat them. There will always be the Walmarts of the world, but then there's also going to be the higher end. And if you decide that I'm going to be a Walmart, then you have to find a way, as Walmart did, to monetize, to drive prices lower and find systems and processes that will allow you to achieve that and stay in business. If you're always going for the bottom dollar and you're just trying to outcompete the others out there, then you're going to end up in a situation where you're not going to be profitable, which means you're not going to stick around. And you have to accept that you're going to lose business. You're going to set a price, and I'm going to be at this range, and there's going to be people who are going to say, well, I can't afford you. Great. I hope you find somebody who can. Maybe you can send them to one of your rivals who is in that price range. This is why I don't consider other businesses doing what you're doing as competition. They're rivals, and you can work together. You can work with a rival. You can say, look, this is your price point. You're in here. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. If I find clients, I'm just going to send them to you. You don't have to do it for me, but maybe if you find somebody that's not necessarily in your range or has a different that requires a different skill set, and I fit that, maybe we can find a way of doing business together. And that ecosystem allows for happier clients, but also allows for a more secure environment, because you do have rivals who aren't necessarily in your niche. I used to be in the IT department at Sears in Canada. And it was a very big IT system. People wouldn't even realize how big it was. But we met quite frequently with our biggest competitors, our biggest rivals, the Bay and others, because we had common interests. There's legislation. There's because of the type of environment we were in, so large businesses. There's security systems. There's a lot of regulation that's required, and not necessarily regulation was put down by others, but we need to regulate on this payment systems. If everyone in your industry is taking payments in a certain way, then what are the upshots, what are the downshots? How do we fix this? How do we work with these things? That's good to have others in that realm to talk with. When I was a lot of different roles, but as a technology consultant for EMC, I would often be in competitive situations, going out and responding to RFPs or presenting to businesses that were looking for all of us to say, here's what we can do, here's how much it is. And yes, while we're in the boardroom, we're competing against the others to try to get the business. But afterwards, it was amazed me, especially in the beginning, how many times I'd end up at the bar with the guys from Hitachi Data Systems or IBM, and we'd just be shooting the breeze and talking about how this industry was. And that competitive nature was there, but it doesn't necessarily play out everywhere. And you can work with your rivals. And it really does help, especially when you're looking at your compensation, to understand what is the norm out there. What are people getting? What is a fair compensation for what you are doing? So consider that. How there's a lot of factors that can go into it, and it's important to understand how to get that and set that, because once you do start getting to a certain clip, you start making a certain amount of money and you're bringing in revenue, then you should be paying yourself. You should be setting yourself up as an employee and paying yourself on a regular basis. Your accountant and your bookkeeper will tell you to do this because it makes more sense. And if you have this in place already, it allows for you to do this change without going through the big hurdles and a lot of the problems that you had just by withdrawing the money. So be sure to pay yourself and at least know your rate. And as you get bigger, as you start bringing in more income, then you can start paying yourself and setting things up. And any profits that are returned after you take all those costs out, including your pay, then you have a certain chunk that goes towards marketing. You have a certain chunk that goes towards back to the business. And this whole structure allows you to be more profitable, more systematized, which allows you to just go through things a lot quicker, a lot easier. So the last part I want to talk about is, when do you use this? And that seems kind of odd. Okay, well, I know when I'm going to use it, but just if you've been working in your business for a period of time and you've had clients, or you've had, you've got your paid and the way you're doing things, it helps to understand when you are using this dollar per hour for you. And as I mentioned before, when you're pricing out your services, maybe it's time for you to update your pricing. Maybe you need to add in a service cost because you've been working and you're not necessarily making the money that you need to. And maybe it is you have to increase your price, your cost to the client. That happens. So inflation, prices do go up. And again, if you're going to be too sensitive about going low and making sure you're out competing the person who's making it at the lowest, you're not setting yourself up. One, you're telling the world that you're not worth it. You're telling the world that you are not worth more money. And that's not something you want to be telling people. And you get to a certain rate, and there's people who will be your clients who don't want to pay the lowest amount. They want to know that they are hiring a good person, a good professional. And if you are at the lowest rate, they're not going to necessarily see that. So people who have the money will pay for the value. So don't worry about setting your rates too high and that you're going to be out market yourself. If you have an established marketplace, you have established client base, then you don't want to necessarily go too far out of that. But you do need to make sure that when you're pricing out your services and your products and how do you keep your business afloat, having that price is when you set that. Also, when you're going into meetings and let's say you're looking at new products or services or new ways of doing business, then having this put into the calculation, put into things, knows how much you're going to require in order to make a living. And this is it. This is the entire thing. If you are not making enough to continue your business, then you're not going to be in business. You're not a business person because you're just, when you're doing it as a hobby. And if you're doing it as a hobby, great. But even if you are been around for a number of years and you're still just taking the money out, taking a draw for yourself, or you've been around for a long time and you're established, setting this price allows you to set those standards as far as your value to the industry and to your clients. And it also helps you when you're sitting in a meeting and you're going to be talking to somebody, and maybe there's different types of meetings that you're going to go into. It's going to be are you a potential client? Maybe it's a different business to business structure. Maybe you're seeing how your services will match up with somebody else's. If you are in an industry where you are working with other parts of the industry, other people who are professionals, as I do, I can build a website, but I'm not going to do it necessarily on my own. I'm going to hire somebody to do it. I help people with their stage speaking. I can sit there for hours and help people cultivate a speech from its inception to the idea right up to the keynote and how they're getting paid for it. And knowing my dollar per hour allows for that to work. But if I'm going to white label someone else's service, I need to know how much I can charge off the top and give them their cost. So if they're operating at a different cost and I don't have any room to take out from there, I've got to figure out how to work with that pricing. So there's just some ideas on on what you do to create a wage for yourself, create a wage structure. Again, how you use it is up to you, but having it in place allows you to be more specific with your business, with the internals, with the business of business, and allows you to go out there and garner a wage, a living wage for yourself, and play with the numbers, figure it out. How much am I making for this part? How much is it working for that much? Working with those numbers, if you start off with your aspirational and then look to see if that fits the narrative of your industry, if who's making what out there and where do they sit in that industry. And again, if no other reason, then it allows you to understand your business model better. Understanding how your business works, where the money's going to go, how you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. This is all a part of it. It's not easy. And whether you're an MLM or whether you are small business entrepreneur, solopreneur, mompreneur, however you want to put it, you should be going through this exercise. If you're having problems with it, give me a call. I can help you out, and I can go through a system with you to figure out how much you should be earning and see to make sure that it fits within what your goals are as a business person and where you are right now and how do we get you to the next level. You can go visit jadestrategicrelations.com, or you can email me at jdthomas@jadestrategicrelations.com. Probably one of the longest email addresses in the world, but that's my business. And we can help you with, and I can help you with all different parts of your business, finding the processes and procedures that are going to make you more effective and get you to your goals. And that's a big part of growing as a business. I hope you found this video instructional. I hope you found a lot of good information on it. If you did, please give me the thumbs up on YouTube or the social media. If you liked this, want to see more videos, click the notification bell to receive notifications for future videos. And please subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be putting out lots of content. My intention is to help businesses through information like this. And if you can use it, you can take it, go ahead, please, and use it. And if you need some help with it, give me a call or give one of my rivals a call. Just get the help you need. You're in a business. You shouldn't be doing it alone. You don't have to be. You've got someone here to help you. That's great for now. So we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great week and enjoy.